That was Black Summer by the Red Hot Chili Peppers on Monca Radio, where music and minds meet on a Friday, February 18th. But if you're on YouTube, you watch it right now on Danny Kugler's YouTube channel, as I have Zack Klapman from the Smoking Tire. He is a podcast host, a car reviewer, and producer for Smoking Tire and Haggerty. He has taken over the user-submitted one takes for the Smoking Tire and has produced things for NBCSN and The Drive. He has worked with the likes of Matt Farah, Chris Harris, and Mike Spinelli, as well as other automotive journalists. Zack Klapman, you're on the show.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Danny. This is really cool.
Yeah, it's been in the works for 2 years, and we finally get something to do. And we're finally gathering because the Philadelphia Auto Show is finally returning, which is very exciting.
I've never been to that one, but I'm sure, any event returning is an exciting thing right now.
Any event is returning basically is an exciting thing. So you see the dates right there if you're on the YouTube, and March 5th to the 13th of 2022. You can see your show info. You can buy tickets. You can see the vehicles that are going to be there by manufacturer. There's a few featured vehicles on the website right now as we're recording this. So the Santa Cruz is going to be there. That's a cool vehicle.
I like that truck. I drove that. I went to the press launch of that. It was nice.
Yeah. Actually, I actually had press passes to the auto show like 2 years ago, and the Tortora. I forget how to say that. SSC. The launch of that car.
The hypercar, the
Tuatara. I never know how to say it.
Yeah, and then of course they had that whole kerfuffle with their top speed run, and is it legitimate and is it not legitimate? And I'm really glad I don't work there, because I don't know what's going to become of that. But that was 2 years ago now that they did that run, and it was really contested. So
yeah, it was 2 years ago. Yeah,
yeah.
But luckily, I don't work in the automotive industry, so I don't really have to cover it. So,
yeah.
But in the meantime, we have the dates and hours of the Philadelphia Auto Show on March 5th to the 13th of 2022, Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Sundays 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and the weekdays 12 noon to 9 p.m. at the Pennsylvania Convention Center, one in the heart of Philadelphia, 1101 Arch Street, right off its suburban station. And also, cool things going on in the main line. Mainline Cars and Coffee announced their dates. We finally have a Cars and Coffee in the Philadelphia area we can be proud about here. Their 2022 event dates. They're not paying me for this. I just went to their Cars and Coffee, actually on the in November and in October, and they actually have some great stuff there. There was like Lamborghinis, there was a Carrera GT there.
Wow. And this was when, in October?
In November, there was a Carrera GT there.
There's no snow on the ground yet?
No snow on the ground yet. So this was the photos from November. I gotta find, there's a new GT. I forget. I'm just stalling right now because I'm trying to find the picture of the Carrera GT, but there's this thing. So a lot of good stuff. But their 2022 event dates are April 10th, May 22nd, June 12th, July 10th, August 7th, September 18th, October 16th, and November 13th. And in case of rain, they have the date taking place the following Sunday at the Bryn Mawr Station Municipal Lot 7. You just Google Bryn Mawr Avenue. GPS, you just Google 7 North Bryn Mawr Avenue. It's right across the street from the library. Very easy access to get to. Very easy access from public transportation, which I took to get to. Very access from the Northtown High Speed Line or the Bryn Mawr, from the Bryn Mawr train station. So very cool stuff here. And after we paid our bills, we go to the interview process. And there's a lot of participating brands at the auto show too. All the exotics are there. And then Chevrolet, Ford, no Mercedes or BMW. That's a big exclusion. So Zach, my first question to you, and a lot of my questions revolve around the collector and performance car culture, since I watch a lot of videos, your videos, Doug DeMuro, stuff like that, um, and read a lot of things about it. With the advent in the pandemic auctions, in the pandemic of auction sites such as Cars and Bids, Radwood, Collecting Car, Bring a Trailer, and others, and with the overall car market just flaring up, do you see the market continuing to be on fire or tampering off a bit with the end of the pandemic coming?
Well, predicting future value of anything, be it a car, stock, a house, is a little bit risky. So I don't want to, sit here and be like, I'm going to guarantee that things will go up or they're going to go down. I do think that the interest rates we've seen in the last couple of years and the stimulus that happened in the last couple of years has really helped and buoyed the car values, because there are a couple of things at play here. People that are used to going on vacation, sometimes a lot, or taking expensive vacations, didn't do that. So they had extra money. There are also really low interest rates, even on used cars, on used collectible cars, you could get financing for those things. So all of that stuff, similar with housing values, fueled the market, and people were sitting at home with nothing to do. But one thing they were allowed to do is buy or drive cars. So I think my guess is, and I'm not a financial advisor, but my guess is that if interest rates go up, we will see the market cool down a little bit, and people are going to be able to go on vacations again and do other things with their money. So I think we will probably see a little bit of a cooling off period. But that said, there is still a really vocal part of the community that is not that excited about where cars are headed.
Right.
Cars are getting more digital. There's less feeling to them. They're less enjoyable to drive. There's fewer manual transmissions. Like all of the things I would say car enthusiasts between the age of like 25 and 75 are really into are just going away due to market forces. And so because of that, I think we will see exciting cars staying popular and sought after. I don't know what that will do for the price in the short term, but I think in the long term, as more cars are only offered with an automatic transmission, or as more cars go electric, the cars that are fun to drive that burn gasoline are still going to be sought after.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because I see these prices on Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer, and it's ridiculous, but it's like they serve a purpose.
They do, and we can't forget that there's also been a supply problem. So people that wanted a new car couldn't get one. So it was really like this perfect storm for crazy car pricing. Like no one can buy a new car. People are bored. We're getting used to buying really expensive things online. If you put all that together, you're going to have this crazy inflated price.
Right. And like, as the new cars get more techier, like I was watching your GTI video on the train earlier today on the way to my mom's, and like the voice command kept coming on and off. And I'm like, some people just don't get it. Some people just want a knob.
Yeah, that car and some of the other Volkswagens that have those systems are confusing, because the execution of what they were going for is really poor. There are other cars that have these capacitive haptic feedback buttons, like Porsches have them, the Lucid has it. There are some cars that have done them well. And while I may prefer buttons or knobs to that system overall, at least they did it really well. And Volkswagen, This is an example of a company that tried to do something similar, and I think did not do a very good job.
Yeah, and like people in testing probably did not pick it up, and like they put it out in the product, and it just like sometimes you'd be surprised like how stuff falls through the cracks in cars, because there's people covering it, but not enough people would know to look for it.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes things slip through the cracks, in any kind of manufacturing, but I think it's just it was a bit of a surprise that it had so many problems.
This is not financial advice, but what enthusiast cars do you see increasing in value or decreasing in value, stuff like that, over the next few years? What are some cars that you're looking at?
I think I mean, yeah, not financial advice. I think there's a generational shift happening. It's been happening for a few years, but the Radwood cars, that era of like 90, late 80s, 90s and early 2000s cars getting popular and getting more expensive. And we're seeing a bit of a fade on the 60s and 70s muscle cars that the generation before me really sought in the early 2000s. I mean, we were all watching Barrett Jackson back in 04,
Right.
when they had the TV shows and hot rods were everywhere, and the money for a numbers matching CUDA was $300,000. I think those days are kind of over, and I think we're going to be seeing more of these 80s, 90s, early 2000s cars continuing to go up. I think something people aren't paying attention to are like the S197 Mustang is a good platform and a fun car to drive, and it's really reliable, and manual transmission, rear wheel drive. It's funny to watch how we chase opportunity or look for bargains, because what we've seen, like a good example is the drift community. The 240SX was the car to get. And then everyone found out about it and they got really expensive. And then everyone went to the E36 and E46 M3, and
they got really expensive.
And then the 350Z, those were a good one of those was like $5,000 3 years ago. And now they're 8 to 10. So I think, yes, it's a live axle car, but I think Mustangs and Camaros are a good option for people that just want a simple rear wheel drive car that works well and you can put good parts on it. And it's really, they're really reliable too, which can't really say about some of the other options. So I think stuff like that.
And also Defenders, stuff like that. I think the off-roading community has really picked up over the last few years with cars that people want, like Defenders, Land Cruisers, stuff like that too.
Yeah, they're not going to cool down. I think we might see a pickup in like two-door SUVs from the 90s, like the Tahoes, the Blazers, those things. They don't make them anymore. They look cool. They've got good underpinnings, and it's been cool to see like the off-road community with overlanding, and there's all these other ways you can go off-roading now that are in vogue besides just rock crawling or just Baja racing. There's,
and that's not that extreme. And
yeah, exactly.
That's not too harmful for your car, yet you can still drive it on the street.
Right. Good point. Yeah.
The increased interest in racing has happened in the US.
Yeah.
Finally.
I know.
F1 Netflix show, NBC having IMSA and IndyCar, NASCAR Clash at Coliseum. You were at that actually.
Did.
Increased the value of performance cars, and talk about a little bit of the increased interest in racing and stuff like that.
Well, it's been Drive to Survive, which is the Netflix show all about F1, has had a really big impact. I mean, I know it got me more interested in F1. It got, like, my girlfriend wasn't into F1, and she watched one episode of that show, and she literally looked at me and went, "Can we watch another one?" And we watched 3 in a row. And I've heard this from journalists. I've heard it from friends.
Last time I was here, I watched the first 3 episodes binged.
Yeah, they're great. And it's great storytelling. And it's because I think F1 has always felt a little bit, it's hard to relate to. The cars look like spaceships. There's so much money, there's so much technology. And then the racing also got a little boring, but the way that show is edited and the stories they tell, it gets you invested in the drivers, especially some of the underdogs. And that's really great. NASCAR has been making a really strong push to get viewers back, because they've had a problem in the last, I think, decade or so of just decreasing viewership. I mean, racing in general has been less popular than, each year it was a little less popular. And NASCAR is making a push to do more road courses, which excites the enthusiast community. And they did stuff like the Clash at the Coliseum, which, I mean, I know on the one hand, the track was so small, the racing wasn't that exciting if you weren't really paying attention. Like, if you weren't really focused on how are people making passes, it might not look like a lot is going on. But it was very technical. It was very technical how the racing was done. The racing was really technical, and they reached, I think, like 40 or 50% of the audience there had never been to a NASCAR race. So it got a bunch of new fans, and it was just a cool experiment. And I am genuinely excited to see the the next generation car, which is the now generation car, like watching those run at the road courses with proper brakes, 18-inch wheels. I mean, I think we basically are going to have Australian V8 supercar in America. So I think all these racing organizations are trying to bring in the fans. What effect that'll actually have on car purchasing, I think will take a bit longer. I think like people might get more interested in watching F1, but I don't think that's going to go, oh man, I really wish I was driving now. I'd like to race F1. Which car should I buy? I think it would be more likely that this would, inspire like a few people, a few percentage points to maybe go out and look for fun cars to drive. But I think the bigger effect would be kids today that get exposed to the racing, and that gets them interested, and then they pursue the passion of cars. So maybe 10 to 20 years, we'll have an enthusiast community that kind of grew up from watching Drive to Survive or NASCAR on road courses. And it kind of created the next generation of car enthusiasts. That's what I'm hopeful for.
Yeah, because it got really stale there in the last few years. And like I'm in a wrestling Discord. As you know, I'm a wrestling fan, and we have a racing room in our sports subcommit channel of our Discord. That's how hardcore we are about racing now. It's like there's only a few of us, but we talk about cars and we talk about racing and we talk about all this, and it's the impact of the F1 show.
Yeah, because ultimately what Drive to Survive is, I think, it's a story about people, and a lot of times the people toward the back of the field, the drivers that are racing, the teams, they do a really good job of telling the story of struggle. And we as people are drawn to the hero's journey. Like this is basic storytelling 101 for movies and TV shows, but it pulls us in and we want to root for these people. And then as a byproduct, we're like, oh, I learned about the aero that Red Bull's working on because of the show. And I didn't know anything about it, but now I know. And now I can, it allows people to be more informed and therefore more excited to watch something because they feel like they understand it. That's what I think.
Right. I totally agree with that because it seemed inaccessible for the longest time.
Yeah.
Speaking of accessibility, YouTube car culture,
Mm-hmm.
something that you have a little something to do with.
A little
bit. It's insane. Like the car culture is just insane. Like Smoking Tire, Donut, Throttle House, Doug DeMuro, Straight Pipes, others, Hoovie's Garage. Do you feel like YouTube has allowed car culture to become influential? How has that influence affected car culture as a whole?
Well, I think it kind of gave car culture a megaphone, and actually it's almost like it gave car culture a telephone so that people that didn't live in these epicenters of car culture could access it. So I think there were two things. Like if you lived in a town of 2,000 people and you're almost never going to see a Ferrari go through your town. So you could see one on the internet or see one in the magazines, but now with YouTube or Instagram, you're exposed to these cars and you get access to them through your computer or through your phone. So you get to learn about them and see them and hear what people think about them and listen to them drive. And I feel like it has made the world feel much smaller, that's just what the internet has done for almost any interest, any hobby. You can talk to someone in Ethiopia, you can look at a car that will never arrive in the United States because it's not allowed here, but like it's kind of shrunk the world, which is great. Yeah. I think the other thing that YouTube has done is not only help people just find car culture, it's helped them find a niche or corner of it that wasn't really represented in magazines or wasn't that popular. Top Gear was gigantic, but it was like, it's a good everyman's show. A lot of people like it that didn't like cars. It's a travel show. It's a funny show, but it didn't really talk about engineering that much. It didn't talk about fabrication or repair. It was just more about let's build a funny thing or drive a supercar. But with shows and channels like Tavarish, B is for Build, you've got people that weren't that interested in chasing the I want to be a car reviewer side of things. They're like, well, what do I want to do with a car? Tavarish has been buying, let's say, optimistic projects for a decade.
Oh, yeah.
He used to do articles on Jalopnik, like I bought a cheap Supra, I'm going to try to fix it. I bought a whatever, an Aston Martin, I'm going to try to fix it. And I think for a lot of us, we grow up hearing about that these foreign complex cars are really hard to work on. You should never touch them with your own hands. You have to bring them to a tech. And they've proven you don't have to do that. And so I think it's been great to see someone who's not interested in how a car drives as much, they're more interested in how it works and how they can fix it or change it. And the people that are also interested in that were given content that fed that part of their brain. Like, oh, this is what I want to watch too. I don't care about someone sliding a car on a track and telling me about the Bluetooth connectivity. I want to see someone fix this thing. So that's what I really like about YouTube, is it's just whatever your interest is. It doesn't matter if it's cars or knitting or whatever. Like, there are channels for everything, and it's allowed communities to find their friends, I guess.
Right. And so it happened in wrestling, so it happened everywhere, and it's sort of given people, and podcasting as well, this sort of idea of, hey, we can talk about this and not be ashamed of it.
Right. Yeah, you're not alone out there. If you want to listen to a podcast about serial killers, there's a million other people who want to listen to it too. And is it weird? I think so, but who cares?
Right. I totally agree with that. The accessibility factor is so huge. And like to do it well, you have to put some work into it, but at the same time, it's like anyone can do it too.
Yeah. I mean, if you have any phone that has a camera, you can make content of some kind. And I think people are proving that on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Just figure out what you like to make, what you're interested in creating, and create it. And someone's probably interested in watching it.
Right. And I think also when you say places, I live in Pennsylvania, so I live outside of Philadelphia. So it's like, I see these cars like once a year at most. Now there's a Cars and Coffee. Now there's stuff where it's allowed the car culture to manifest.
And
I appreciate that. And like this Cars and Coffee, that the mainline Car and Coffee, Brett, who does it, is a senior in high school.
Wow. And he organized it?
Yeah.
That's super cool. And it's, I mean, I don't know what his story is, but I guess like you see other communities creating these events. I mean, Cars and Coffee, I don't know what, 5 years ago was like, there was one of them, and I think it was in Los Angeles, and it just had that name, Cars and Coffee. And then everyone went, well, why don't we just make a car show too and call it Cars and Coffee? And there were already car shows going on everywhere, but there was just something changed when everyone started calling it Cars and Coffee. And I feel like it got reinvigorated thanks to Instagram and thanks to the internet.
Yeah, I really like the Cars and Coffee model, because it's like, it encourages all cars,
Yeah, I agree. That's what I like about it. That's what I like about Radwood or the Good Vibes meet. Like, I mean, I used to go to hot rod shows as a kid, and I loved them. I grew up around hot rods, and that was like my first love, but they were kind of limiting in what I was exposed to. And that's why for so long, I didn't really pay attention to Japanese cars or European cars.
I was like totally on the other end of the spectrum, where that's all I wanted to focus on, because I was so exposed to the American cars.
You're like, I had enough of this. What else is out there?
Yeah.
Got it.
So California, where you're from, it's different, say, than the Northeast in terms of car culture, because the winter and other weather events that are not good for cars. What makes it so special to be active in the California car culture?
Well, there's a few things. I mean, California is quite literally where hot rodding began. I mean, back in, I'm gonna get the dates wrong, but I think in the early like 1910s and 20s, some of the first American coach builders were based in California. So people would buy a Model T and then they'd send it to a coach builder because they had, they have lots of money and they didn't want their car to look exactly like, John down the street who doesn't have as much money. So they would send it to a coach builder and they would paint it and change the bodywork and all these other things. And that was like the beginning of hot rodding. And then you also have a lot of design centers in California. There's the Cal T Design Center. You have Art Center, which is probably the most revered transportation design school in the United States, one of the top ones in the world. You have hot rod shops. Like, it all just kind of bubbled up and built on itself. So that's part of it. And then the other thing is honestly the weather. And it's
Yeah.
probably kind of a lame, or I don't know, like seems like a simple excuse, but the way I've thought about it is, you know, sports cars and delicate cars really can only drive around when the weather's decent. If it's raining or snowing, like I'm not going to take the E46 M3 out in the snow unless I have snow tires on it. Or if you have,
Or unless if you're Tedward.
I mean, I would like to, but you know, if you live somewhere where they put salt on the roads, like, well, you know, it's doing damage to your car. So do you
Right.
want to damage your precious sports car or beloved whatever, or do you want to just drive something else for the winter? I totally get it. So the way I think about it is, like, it's like a solar panel. You know, if a solar panel only makes energy when the sun's on it. So if California, the weather's always nice, that's the sun. And we are basically making energy all year round because the weather's nice. Whereas if you live in Vermont, well, think of the winter as darkness. So 4 months out of the year, it's dark, you're not creating energy. And every year the weather is nice and fairly consistent here. So the car culture is just going to build and build and build and build. I mean, we have you know, colleagues from Britain or other parts of, you know, the country or the world, and they will fly to SoCal for press launches or to shoot content because they just know like the weather's stable. It's really pretty stable here. And having been on shoots where that get rained out in other parts of the country, I mean, it really, really throws a wrench into your budget, into your week, into your shoot. I mean, it can really derail a lot of things. So if you can avoid that, you will.
From a production standpoint, it's just a nightmare to get everything rearranged.
It really, really is. And I mean, I worked on crews with like 6 people, so not that big, but if you have to make 6 people stay one extra day somewhere, I mean, it's costing thousands of dollars. So now imagine you're shooting a car commercial where the budget's $500,000 and suddenly you need to extend it by 2 days. I mean, the price is just goes through the roof.
Yeah. And then it's not worth putting it in the Super Bowl. With Super
right.
Bowls
You have a Super Bowl contract. You need to shoot this Toyota truck commercial. You know, you're probably going to do it somewhere where the weather is stable. And that's why if listeners start paying attention to car commercials, you'll probably start seeing really similar roads and locations between different companies. And a lot of those are based in or around the Southern California area for a reason.
And in the canyons.
Yeah. I mean, I watch dealership commercials sometimes, or I see car commercials and I go, I know what road that is. I know which road that is. It's funny to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like your videos because you guys take such a detailed approach on like the car, and like I think you and Tedward do this so well. You guys and Tedward do this so well, where you guys drive the car, talk about your raw experiences doing this. Not to diss any other YouTuber, like Doug does this too, and you know, it sort of feels authentic just talking about your impressions of a car right then and there.
Wait, sorry, rephrase the question.
I was just making a comment.
Oh, that's what I thought. I was like, the way you left, I was like, wait, was there a question? I thought that was a period.
No, it was a comment. It was just complimenting you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, it's hard to like assess a new car every time, but it's a really fun job, and we get I don't know, it's like reading 1,000 books because you just get this cool breadth of knowledge. Although it's way easier than reading 1,000 books because I've been trying to read the same book for like 2 years. It's very slow going.
Yeah. Even you discover stuff with I haven't driven yet. This is weird because I haven't driven yet, even, and like I could feel like if you get a new or old car, like you're still discovering stuff about it every day.
Yeah,
you know?
I think you could own a car for, 5-10 years. I mean, you can always improve your driving. So you could own one car your entire life, and you could, if the car was of a decent caliber, I'd say you could continually improve your driving until the day you died. If the car is too slow or too weak, you'll find the limits of it very quickly. But I mean, if you have something with a decent amount of power and grip, I mean, you could literally drive that car from the time you're 16 to whenever it is you die and continually perfect how you brake, how you turn, how you accelerate. I mean, that's what race car drivers do. They're always trying to get better.
Like Matt Farrell's Lexus.
The million mile Lexus. Yeah, I mean that car was amazing.
That car is amazing. That car is amazing. I'm not knocking it. I'm just making a joke because that car is amazing because million miles. That car's seen a lot.
A lot of parts, a lot of people, a lot of trips. I mean, he has a journal somewhere. So for people that don't know, we bought a Lexus LS400 that had like 920,000 miles on it, and Lexus makes some of the most reliable cars in the world, especially back in the late 80s, early 90s. Right. And so the goal was, let's drive this to 1 million. And we realized between press cars and our own cars, there's no way we could drive the car to 1 million miles. I mean, 80,000 miles would take probably a decade. So we loaned it out to a bunch of people who took it on their own trips and their own journeys, and they wrote in this journal about it. And it was really cool to see where people would want to take it, friends, colleagues, whatever. They drove to Grand Canyon or Zion or over to, Florida and back, whatever. Wow. And the car had a little bit of an adventure before it hit 1 million.
I did that drive. Me and my friend Andrew did that drive from Pennsylvania to Florida. It's a straight line.
It is
pretty much.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It's like the 95. Is that the highway?
95. Yeah.
Then yeah, it's a pretty straight shot, but same with the 10 east-west. I mean, anything that connects basically two sides of a country or a continent is usually not the most exciting drive, unless it's across Italy or, Swiss Alps or something. That's different.
Now, last question before the fun game we have planned for today.
Yes.
I think being a car journalist is an interesting job too, because in a lot of cases, companies loan out their new models for you to tell you your viewers, their honest opinion.
Mm-hmm.
What's the balancing act of being honest in car journalism with being mindful that your opinion impacts so much in terms of an opinion of a car?
Well, I think honesty is paramount. I think that's the most important thing. Because if you're for any reason you're dishonest about how you feel about a car, well, then it's like, why are you doing the job? And also, right, you will eventually lose your credibility, I think, with your viewers or your audience. Like, our job is not to like balance our honesty to help sell cars or be nice to the OEMs. So I think something that gets misconstrued by people is manufacturers don't mind if we criticize a car as long as it's specific, because then we're correct. We're like, this is a problem that we've discovered that we think is an issue, and it's this thing. And they can go, okay, well, either they can disagree with that choice, or they can say, thank you, we will look at this in the future. I mean, there have been times where journalists have made criticisms or comments, and like the next version of that car literally has changes made to it because of that. And so I think specificity is good. And, and the other thing is, it's just not our job to like help them sell more cars. It can be a byproduct. If a car is amazing, and like, if every journalist in the world is saying this is amazing, like GT3 or Veloster N or BRZ, they're probably going to sell more of them because the enthusiasts who follow us and trust us get excited by it. But that doesn't mean we're going to say every car is amazing to help sell more cars, because like I don't benefit if Toyota sells more GR86s. I don't, or more Celicas or whatever.
It's that, I think, integrity that sort of drives you to be correct in what you do.
Right. I think that's where you have the difference between a journalist and an influencer. And the term influencer is very broad, so I don't want to paint with too broad a brush. Like, and I understand it's come to mean like someone who has influence, which can be anybody. Like an actor can have influence, or a musician or a math teacher. That doesn't mean they're an influencer, but there are people out there who get paid to make content. They get paid by the manufacturers to make content, and they are often not critical about a car and everything. They say that everything about it is great. and they might omit some issues that other people might notice. And so that is something that viewers have to kind of decipher and figure out who they want to listen to or not. The other funny thing is that so much of the time, people already know what car they want to buy. So like someone will ask us like, hey, I'm thinking of getting a GR86. What do you think about it? And I could say, this isn't how I feel. I could say like, it's the most terrible thing in the world. You should never buy it ever. And they would go, well, I'm probably gonna go buy it anyway. Because so what a lot of people are actually looking for when they ask,
validation.
Exactly, validation. They want you to say, yes, you have made a good choice. And then they go, yeah, that's right. I made a good choice.
Like in any other industry, like what I'll give the example of Dave Meltzer. People in wrestling often look to Dave Meltzer for his star ratings because they want their match to be rated 5 stars or 4 stars or above because it validates their opinion that says this match is good.
Exactly. So it's like it's so funny that like we could be excited about a band or a restaurant or a wrestling match or whatever, but we also want someone who has a voice of authority to agree with us because it reaffirms that we are smart and have made the right choice.
Instead of being confident in ourselves. It's so funny.
Right. Yeah. Humans are fun.
Yeah, humans are fun. But we go to fun because up next we have the phrase game, random car generator phrase game.
Okay.
And I know Zach's looking forward to this. Let me share screen and let me get oh god. How do I should have just slide format. Oh, I forget how slideshow. There it is. They hide it from me. Zack Klapman random car generator. It's not really that random. I chose all the cars.
Okay. So explain the game to me again and to the audience because I kind of forget.
So I chose 10 cars from different sources.
Okay.
So either new cars that are hot and trendy or auction results from Bring a Trailer or Cars and Bids.
Okay.
And give me your impressions.
Oh, just what I think about the car or the sale?
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Are we doing like, what is it, like one word association, or is this just like a quick 5-second hot
quick 5-second, 10-second? It can be as long as you want.
Okay, I can go on for a while if you've ever heard the podcast. So
I know you can go. You try to keep it short, but you can go on.
Okay.
2023 Nissan Z.
I mean, the 350Z and the 370Z are fun to drive. They're funny because it's like a dedicated coupe. There's no back seat. At least the 350Z just had this weird crossbar.
Right.
So it was never as useful as some of the competitors from like BMW, but the engines are pretty stout. The power is really good. And I think this redesign they've done looks good. It has really grown on me, especially in the front. I think the back looks awesome. And I just think we should celebrate the fact that while so many car companies are making, getting rid of manual transmissions, making things more digital, et cetera, this is like a really similar formula to the last two. And I know that the chassis and a lot of the stuff underneath this car is very similar to its predecessor, but who cares? Like it's going to have 400 horsepower. You get a tune on this thing, I'm sure it's going to jump to like 480. So now you have a good, trusted rear-wheel drive platform that has a ton of power and is not super expensive. I mean, starting at 40 grand is a little high, but I don't know. I'm stoked
between 40 and 50. I think it's going to be fun for enthusiasts.
It'll be fun. I mean, it's competing against like the Mustang GT is a really good car.
GR86.
GR86, but that's luckily $10,000 cheaper, thankfully.
Right.
So there's not a ton of competition in this price point now that they're like kind of like waning on the Camaro a little bit. Yeah, I'm excited for it. We need more of this stuff. Yes,
we do. I agree. 400 horsepower twin turbocharged V6. Give me all of that. Okay. 2003 Acura NSXT. It's sold for $75,763 on Cars and Bids in October 2021. It's a drivable every day.
The NSX is one of my favorite cars in terms of ergonomics, reliability, and the shift feel in the manual transmission NSX is the best shifter I've ever used, price, like irregardless of price. And I've had other friends drive the cars or producers on shoots, and I'm like, the shift knob, the titanium shift knob, like everything about it, from the time you put your hand on it to when you shift through the gears, you're like, this is how they should all feel. It's amazing. If it's the bolt action rifle is a bit of a cliche, but it feels like that. It feels so precisely milled, and you can feel each gear without it being too difficult to shift. That's perfect. So the NSX is amazing. Yeah, they've gotten expensive, and it's hard to find some of the interior parts if you need new like radios or window switches or whatever. But the fact is that this car changed the game of supercars, and it basically forced Ferrari, Lamborghini, and everybody else to make a car that was more reliable and usable than what they were making, because this really was faster than a bunch of the Italian competition. And they're awesome, man. Every time I've gotten to drive one of these, I've wanted to just drive it across the country and back. They're so comfortable. Visibility is great. They ride great. Drive it every day. And if you have one, you should drive it every day.
And I love the color in this one. I love that blue.
That's a really good color. Yeah, I mean, I like blue a lot. I think it's my favorite color for cars right now, but I'm biased. Oh, yeah.
Of course, I'm going to put this on there.
Yeah.
The 06. Vin 01.
Yeah.
Vin 01 sold for $3.6 million. I had to put that fact in there because Barrett Jackson's insane.
Well, for people who aren't familiar with this, these are charity auctions. So at any of the big auctions, when they have the very first car off the production line, and it's a highly anticipated car, the car company will sell that first one, and it usually gets sold for 10 to 100x over what it would cost out of a dealership. So this car is going to cost like $100,000, and it sells for 3.6 million. That doesn't mean it's on par with a $3.6 million Pagani.
No,
someone got a really big write-off and they wanted to donate to charity, and that's great. And and they got a car out of it. So that's how that works. But this car is, I can't wait to see the numbers this puts down in terms of performance, because the C8 Corvette, and I'm not that into the looks of the regular one. I do think it looks better in Z06 form. I think the way they widened it works. The proportions of the lines work much better. But the C8 Corvette is so comfortable on the road. The transmission, the DCT from Tremec, is excellent. The engine is great. And you're getting supercar performance for under $100,000 with the regular Corvette. With the Z06, I mean, this is really, it's going to be interesting how close, if not past, it gets to like a Ferrari 488, a Huracan. Like, it's like which trim level of the supercars is it going to take down? I think that's the real question, because GM's chassis engineers are, I think, some of the best in the business. And that's true of the Cadillacs. It's true of the Camaros. So if you take that and then you add mid-engine and you add lots of power, I mean, you basically have a Chevy Ferrari, and it's going to be fast.
And they made it the 458 the benchmark of this car, the benchmark for this car. And like, see that video they made, I know it's a promotional video, but that's probably one of the best promotional videos car companies ever made.
Yeah, I mean, they benchmark that car, but this is making almost 700 horsepower. So it's making 488 GTB or Pista horsepower. Right. I mean, this is almost as much power as the F8. So you're making the same amount of horsepower as some of the top tier Ferraris. The difference, of course,
naturally aspirated too.
Right. So it's NA, so it's going to sound better, which is something that's definitely lacking in the F8 when I've driven it. But it does mean it's probably not going to have as much low end torque as those Ferraris. So I don't know which will win in a drag race, but drag racing is not what these cars are all about. Like the lap time, I really am excited to see what the lap times are between this and like Ferraris and Lamborghinis. Yeah.
Yeah. At Laguna.
Yeah. Anywhere.
25 years owned, Porsche 911 SC Targa. It's a $43,000 car sold on Bring a Trailer pretty recently in February. 67,000 miles, 3.0 liter flat six, 5-speed manual, reprint paint to a metallic blue, 15-inch alloys.
I mean, my gut reaction, like Targos do nothing for me. I think I don't like I really don't like the way these look. I don't like the way they look with the top up or down. The new ones, they hide that Targa top much better, but this with the really big B pillar, it just ruins it.
I agree.
It's a pretty good looking car. So for me, like I wouldn't buy this for $43,000. I know that 911s have been really in vogue for a couple of years, and they are, to their credit, like they're really durable. They're really well built. I mean, I drove like a 1972 911. I've driven 1980s 911s. All of them feel like they were made yesterday. I mean, there's no wiggles, there's no squeaks. Like the body is just so well built. So I get why they are. Like when I go up into the Los Angeles mountains for a drive, the groups of cars that go by are usually 911s. Like they are an active community for driving instead of parking. Like they don't care as much. There's some car communities that just want to like go to the car park because they don't want to risk breaking the car, or that's just what they're more about. A lot of the Porsche people are into driving. And I think some of that is because the cars can take it over a long period of time. But this to me is like, I don't think it looks that good. I wouldn't spend $43,000 on it, but the rising tide lifts all boats. So if you can't get into like a really cool fast 911, you can get into this, because 5 years ago, you could get a lot more Porsche for $43,000. If I was going to, I would rather get a Cayman S for $43,000 than this thing.
A car you recently had on one take. Lucid Air.
Yeah, Lucid Air. I think it should make Tesla nervous. I think the interior design is beautiful and far higher quality than the last Tesla I sat in, which was a Plaid. Just it's more interesting. I think the electric motors as they came out in the Model S, it was like, oh look, it goes really fast. It goes 0 to 60 really quickly. A lot of cars do that now. And now you have to separate yourselves from the Taycans and the Teslas and the Audi e-trons in other ways. And so I think what Lucid has done is made a car that the exterior is pretty different from the other ones. Right. But the interior is really beautiful. And the e-tron, if you get in it, it basically looks like another Audi, which is good. Some people want familiarity. The Tesla is too stark, in my opinion, and feels cheaply made. This feels like a different new thing. And I think it's the most efficient of the EVs. Technically, they won that race. Gets crazy, has crazy range, and you can get it with 1,000 horsepower. So of course it's really fast. And the ride in this is like S-Class ride without airbag suspension. Wow. It was amazing. The ride is excellent. So I think as long as their quality control is good and charging networks keep getting better, I mean, I feel like I hope they're a contender, because I like the car a lot.
Yeah, I like this car a lot. I love the sleek design too. I love the wheel design here is pretty good too. It's unique for an electric car.
I mean, the whole thing is unique. It looks very French. I think it looks, yes. If you put a Citroën badge on it, no one would think it was out of place.
No one would fret.
Yeah.
2006 Subaru Baja Turbo sold for $14,100 on Cars and Bids on February 3rd.
Well, so this is
the turbo.
It's an aftermarket hood for sure.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a modified car. This looks like a total Colorado vehicle, and it's in the snow. I don't get the attraction to the Utes, like El Caminos and things. I'd rather have a car or a truck. But I know that Utes got popular in Australia because they needed to transport truck goods over long distances of highways. And like, a traditional pickup truck in America gets bad gas mileage. It's a huge air brake. So yeah, like take a car and give it the cargo capacity of a truck. And now you have something that is pretty useful. The Baja's always been so funky to me. I think I would rather just have a legacy wagon, because I like being able to put things in a trunk so they can't get stolen. The Baja has been this weird, like, It has like a cult following of, it was weird enough and fun enough, and they didn't make that many of them or sell that many of them. So I think the people that appreciate them tend to bid them up a bit. But like, I think this is a fair price. Like, it's like $14,000. It's basically a Subaru Legacy with a truck bed. Sure. Can't hold much back. It's really short, but like, I don't know. Some people really dig the funky styling of these things. Yeah.
Another big one, Rivien R1t with the gear tunnel and camp kitchen.
Right.
And making 835 horsepower.
We're reviewing this car in like a month. I've heard nothing but good things about the Rivien from a lot of colleagues I trust. They say it handles great, which isn't true of a lot of pickup trucks. It's fast, of course, because it's electric. There's a lot of clever things in it. The camp kitchen's a pretty cool idea, and you can take that out and store things behind the back seat. So I think I like this clever stuff. What's really exciting to me, and Lucid did this as well, is with electric vehicles, you have more packaging options because you don't have a drive shaft going down the middle of the car. Or in Lucid's case, the motors are separated and they're very small. So they have like these extra parcel shelves underneath the traditional trunk floor. With Rivien, you don't have that drive shaft, and they just found a way to make extra space underneath the back seats. So you have this tunnel that can hold stuff and has a slide out kitchen. So it's cool. I mean, it's a cool way to get people excited about your car company.
Yeah.
And the fact that all these people I work with that I really trust their opinion have said such good things about this tells me, like, look, this isn't just an electric truck that has a slide out kitchen, but the rest of the vehicle sucks. So it seems like they've made a good truck that can off-road well, and is really good to drive and drives well. It's supposed to handle well, really great, because it has a really clever sway bar system similar to what McLaren does, where the corners are connected with hydraulics.
Oh, right.
And the McLaren 720 is like one of the best riding super sports cars I've ever been in because of this amazing wheel articulation and suspension they have. So this has a similar system, and that bodes well. So I'm into it.
Yeah, I'm into this car too. When I saw Doug's video on it, I was like the gear tunnel is a little gimmicky, but oh my god, like it's so smart. And then like when I saw him accelerating it, I was like, man.
Yeah, and something I don't like about trucks, again, is that if you put something in the bed, it can be stolen. So granted, if something's too big for the gear tunnel, well, then you have to figure something out. But like if you have skis, snowboards, I don't know, guns, something that's high value and easily carried that won't fit in the truck cab, put it in the gear tunnel, and then someone can't steal it while you're grabbing a burger.
1FZ powered 1989 Toyota FJ62 Land Cruiser 5-speed, 29,000 on bring a trailer.
I'm surprised it was that cheap, honestly. There was a period of time where any Land Cruiser just seemed to be selling for crazy money, mostly because Icon, who does amazing modifications and refurbs of those cars, was buying a lot of them so they could refurb them and sell them for like $200,000. So I don't know, 200,000 miles imported from Colombia. That's interesting. I'm not sure how import laws work, so don't ask me those questions. But I mean, these things are usually about as reliable as a hammer. So if the 1FZ is that kind of engine, yeah, that's a really stout off-roader that will last a really, really long time. Looks cool too. That's a good color, good stance. I'm into it.
Yeah, I like that stance too. Really good color.
Yeah.
2004 BMW E46 325i sedan. Not an M car, but a 325i. $11,000 on cars and bids on 2222. 56,700 miles.
It's an automatic. This should be so okay. So this is an example of pricing of the price bubble. I mean, this should be like a $6,000 car. It doesn't have a lot of miles, which is good. It looks like it's in good shape. I mean, this is a really great daily driver, long distance commuter. I mean, these cars are comfortable, they're smooth, they ride great, assuming everything works, of course. But okay, I have a 2002 BMW M3. I bought it with 85,000 miles on it. It's a slick top. It had the nav system. It has the best seats, rare color. And I bought it for $15,000 like 4 years ago. So this is a car this car has a little more than half the horsepower of mine. It's It's silver, man. It's an automatic, man, and it's knocking on the door of as expensive as my car. I mean, you could buy E46 M3s a few years ago for $11,000 that were manual transmission, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a car that, while a good way to get around, I don't think it just shouldn't be $11,000. 6-7 grand. That's what I think it should be.
And then the last one, 2022 Ford Bronco Raptor. This was just revealed.
Yeah. The Bronco is really cool. I've driven a bunch of them, a bunch of the new ones, and they look awesome. The retro thing, they executed it perfectly. They drive on the highway much better than the Wrangler, which is its competitor, because they have a different front suspension design and they have a different steering system. They're very, very loud on the highway. I mean, really surprisingly loud. That's the one big con against them in terms of their highway performance. The Raptor stuff is always fun. I mean, it's suspension that can go over bumps at high speed. I'm into that. You can slide it around. I'm really into that. It's got 400 horsepower. I'm into that. They're going to sell every one of these they can make. I mean, I feel like a lot of people have been looking for an option besides Wrangler, and the Wrangler has been the best choice at its game of like hardcore off-roading that you can drive around for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. So they're going to sell every one of these things. I think they're fun.
Right.
They look cool and they're fun.
And they have sold every one of those things probably.
I mean, in these, yeah, it starts at 70 grand, but with markups these days, there's no way you're getting one of these for $70,000, unfortunately.
No.
I would advise people to wait a bit. If you can wait 2 years, see if they have sorted out any problems and get the supply chain fixed, you might save yourself some money. But yeah, they're fun. Looks cool.
And with that, it concludes our interview. Do you want to plug anything before we go?
Definitely. Please check out the Smoking Tire podcast. It's myself and the host Matt Farah talking about cars. We have interviews with journalists, pretty famous comedians, people that work in robotics, all kinds of things, talking about tech, talking about cars, talking about jokes. And then we also do car reviews on the Smoking Tire YouTube channel. It's a separate channel, and we review anything that's new, quick, and exciting, and sometimes home-built projects from our fans that usually have really cool and interesting cars. And it's fun to learn about why they put the parts on they did or why they made the choices they made.
Yeah, that mini review was so insane.
That was a funny, weird car. Yeah.
And then explain your shirt. Explain your shirt. What's that shirt?
Oh, so this is a shirt we made on Blip Shift a few years ago. It says "Boxy but Good," and it's got an old like Volvo V70 on it.
Yes. There
was a movie called Crazy People, I think back in the 80s, that Matt really likes, and one of the people in there in the insane asylum used to make car commercials, and with the Volvo they were like, well, it's boxy but it's good, which is kind of true of the Volvo. So we did a little bit of an homage to that funny line. Yeah.
And then last question, turning radiuses.
Sure.
What is it that Matt's so obsessed with turning radiuses for?
That's funny. Well, I think my opinion is that you should pay attention if a turning radius is either horrible or really incredible. And then I think there's a big middle ground where you're like, that's fine. I owned a Crown Vic for a while, which had a turning radius that was so bad that parallel parking it was basically out of the question. Getting around shopping malls or parking lots was like difficult. You had a 3-point turn in places that any other car doesn't have a 3-point turn. So in my opinion, if you're in a left turn lane and the road beside you has 2 lanes, if you can make that U-turn without hitting the curb or anything, great. That's a good turning radius. That's a tight turning radius and awesome. And if you can't do it, you know, if you're in an F-150 or something, I understand like that's a length issue. But I think Matt just always wants to test that part of the car. And we're usually testing the cars in the canyons where there's not a lot of parking garages. You know, we don't do a lot of city testing. We don't like, we're not going to tell you how this car parks or show you rather how it parks or how it navigates through a parking lot. So oftentimes the only way to test that is when we have to turn around to go back up the canyon. And I think he would love to have a car that could turn around on 1 2-lane road. And some cars can, but that's very, very rare because that's not a lot of space.
Yeah, it is very weird. He's like, oh, it's very good. Oh, no.
Yeah, I think for me, most of the time, if I have to like do a little 3-point turn on a 2-lane road, that's not bad. If I have to do a
Yeah.
4 or 5-point turn, that's not good.
And this is talking from someone who's never driven. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you'll learn. And one day you're gonna have to turn around somewhere, and you're gonna have cars coming towards you, and you're gonna, oh God, I'm not gonna make the turn. You have to put in reverse, and they're gonna be coming towards you, and you're gonna feel the anger of those other drivers as you are in their way of wherever they're going, and you're gonna be wanting to back up as quickly as you can, and then put it in drive as quickly as you can. And if you have to do another little adjustment because you still can't make the turn, like, it's stressful. It is annoying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I could imagine. I've probably seen my dad do it or my mom do it, probably.
Yeah. Or if you have a drift car, you have 40 degrees of steering angle, and then this is never a problem.
True. And then you could just turn traction control off.
Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't do that in on public streets to make a U-turn.
No,
but,
you shouldn't do that on public streets.
you know,
No,
but
we
it's
don't
very,
condone
it's very
that.
easy to, right. But if you live in Pittsburgh, I mean, people are aware that if it's snowy, it's very easy to make a U-turn. It's much easier in the snow. Yeah.
So you can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at DJDKooks and on Instagram at DKookiePunk43, DKOOKYPUNK43. I'm gonna take a quick picture. There it is. And then I'm gonna stop the recording.